overlap between those two groups. But what I realized when I was looking through the sign-up list is that this might be the largest Zoom full of accredited investors and qualified purchasers in the entire campaign. And so first and foremost, I would like to whip out my pitch deck and present my fund to you, except I can't because we also have a lot of press in the room. And so I will not be doing that. I'm going to miss a huge opportunity. In all seriousness, listen, this pledge is less than 2 weeks old, and it has already crossed the world over. In my wildest dreams, I had no idea that this would ever get this big. It started as a rage tweet 2 weeks ago, almost exactly 2 weeks ago. I was just feeling frustrated, like many of you, about the growing sentiment that venture capital and all of my colleagues were going MAGA. And I just felt like they didn't speak for me. And I felt like I wanted my voice to be heard. And more critically, I felt like those loudest voices were not speaking to the hundreds of founders that I talk to on a monthly basis. The founders in my portfolio, in my pipeline, in my community. And out of that frustration, I wrote a short pledge. I bought a couple or 10 or so URLs. And I sent it to about a dozen friends. This was a Thursday night. And by Friday morning, two of the biggest names in tech, Mark Cuban and Reid Hoffman, had signed it. And so it was very, very real from the very beginning. And so with the help of a group of volunteers that I would like to recognize, by Tuesday night, we had 100 signatures. That was less than a week ago that we announced on Wednesday. It was exactly a week ago when we announced it on Wednesday. And today we have over 1,300 signatures, about 750 of those from VCs that we could verify. And this is absolutely incredible. And I'm in a little bit of a bubble. I have no idea what this all looks like on the outside, but on the inside, let me tell you that this is all matchsticks and tape. So, while all y'all are reporting that like the big names and big dollars are running this thing, in reality, it's like me and a group of volunteers that joined along the way. And I would like to say thank you to those volunteers. The earliest ones who were sending this pledge to the first people who signed it. And let me tell you, it took a lot of bravery to sign this thing before everybody else did, before it became popular. So thank you to Christy Pitts, Divya Kakad, my partner, Graham Walker, Eric Reese, Erica Lucas, Jonathan Asoff, Kate Brodock, Keisha Landrum Pierre, Marie Rocha, Nassim Sayani, Shyla Nieves Burney, who got Mark Cuban to sign on day one. Shyla's amazing. Sydney Thomas, Tessa Flippin, Tiana Tukes, Tracy Gray, and Wendy Anderson. Thank you so much to all of you. And along the way, a couple of other volunteers that have really gone like full tilt on this thing joined, and I'm very excited to introduce them to you today. The first is Kate Gardiner. She is an award-winning communications agent and the founder of Grey Horse, a socially conscious agency that has represented some of the biggest names in business in VC and a lot of household names. And Kate took this on as initially a favor to me when I called her and I told her I had a crisis. And fun fact, she broke her back the day that we spoke. And so she has been doing this and getting this story all around the world with a literal broken back. She is a superhero. And the second is John Corrigan, who I met on Friday. John is a multi-time technology founder, currently the co-founder of Curve AI, a sometimes venture capitalist, a longtime political organizer. We're going to hear from John a little bit later today. Now, listen, as an industry, we're not really known for being activists or organizers or even, not necessarily the best collaborators, but somehow more than 700 of us from firms, big and small, from all across the country, have come together on this sliver of an idea about how important this moment is. We are Democrats, we are Republicans, and we are independents that have signed this pledge. And the messages of support that have been coming in have been completely overwhelming. I don't know how you can not be inspired by what is happening here. And what hundreds of you have been asking me is the most cliched of VC questions, which is, how can I be helpful? And so today we are here to tell you how. The first way is you can make a campaign donation today. There's going to be a link in the chat and you can see a QR code right next to my face. And second, The second way you can help is by organizing. Later in the call, my colleague John Corrigan is going to teach us how to use our time, resources, and network to get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected this November. So with that, I'm excited to introduce our first guest. He doesn't really need an introduction, but I'll do a quick one anyway. Ron Conway is the founder and managing director of SV Angel, a legendary investor who has invested in in the biggest world-changing companies that we all know and love. I could name all of them, but you all know who they are. So Ron, thank you so much for being here with us today. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. I cannot thank you, Leslie, and Kate enough for organizing this effort. And logistics are always a killer, and you're doing beautifully. SV Angel has invested in hundreds of seed stage startups. But what a lot of people don't realize is we have always, for our 30-year existence, encouraged our founders to be civically engaged and to be philanthropically engaged as well. So I'm here today in my role of getting the VC community to become civically engaged. Let me assure all of you that Kamala Harris is eminently qualified to be president of this country. I have known her for over 20 years. I knew her as public defender in San Francisco, then as our attorney general in California, then our senator from California, and now the vice president. So, we don't need to do due diligence on this candidate. This candidate is absolutely qualified. And we don't need to bicker among ourselves about who's for and who's against. The only scorecard we should use for the next 90 plus days is beating Donald Trump. And that scorecard is going to be measured on how much money we can raise tonight. And I want to get this kicked off by offering a $50,000 match for the first 50,000 that is donated on this Zoom. And I'm hoping we can raise a lot more than that, but I'm going to match the first 50,000. And the link for that and the QR code, Leslie already talked about. I wanted to put up a chart that Mike is going to put up for me now. And in addition to donating tonight, I just want to let you know there are other areas that you can be involved and pick an area that's of interest to you. And here are the segments that you can get involved in. A link to this will be in the chat as well. So I encourage you to, if you're old fashioned, do what I do and print it out. But if you're interested in voter registration, here's the causes that you can get involved with. If you're interested in persuasion, there's causes that are listed here as well. Mike, if you can scroll down a little bit, we'll go to the next section. But there's a lot of great areas where you can get involved with veterans, etc. Future Forward, which is coming up to the top of the screen now. Future Forward is the official Kamala Harris PAC. If you're interested in mobilization, here's another 4 or 5 causes you can get involved with. By the way, Emerson Collective, founded by Lorraine Powell Jobs, helped with this document. Election protection is another area you can get involved with. So I encourage you to look at this link after the call. But tonight, let's focus on getting donations, and then other causes you can donate to or do volunteer work for are listed here. I can't thank everyone here enough, and I'll turn it back over to Leslie.
Thank you so much, Ron, and thank you for your generous donation. Everybody, please let's get the donations going. QR code is right over my shoulder. Next up, I am really excited to introduce someone who's become a really, really close friend. I met her initially as the author of a book called Drop the Ball that's been a savior for a whole generation of working moms. She is an author, an entrepreneur, a women's advocate. She's been named to Entrepreneurs 100 Powerful Women, Fast Company's League of Extraordinary Women. Her bio goes on and on and on. And I also call myself honored or count myself honored to have been one of the investors in her company, The Crew. So welcome, Tiffany Dufu.
Thank you so much for having me. And, I'm not speaking today on behalf of any particular organization, but as an individual whose life's work is advancing women and who cares deeply about our democracy, and also who cares and has been the beneficiary of incredible venture capitalists. And so was just very excited about the role that I believe you have to play in what will be a fight that I believe we can win. So thank you for inviting me to this.
Absolutely. And I want to tell the audience that you are currently moving your son into his dorm at Howard.
Yes. I literally just put on this.
Feeling at Howard. It must be nuts.
It's actually bananas today. But there's no, place I'd rather be. Years ago, I know Roy's on the call from Bloomberg Beta. They basically were such huge investors and so helpful to me and the crew. And I'll never forget at the top of COVID in the spring of 2020, I needed to raise another round of capital. And I asked his partner, Karen Klein, who many of you know, I said, Karen, this seems so crazy. Do you think that we can do this? Like, do you think I can pull this off, like raising a round of capital at the top of a viral pandemic? He says to me, Tiffany, if there's one founder who can pull this off, it's you. You're top 1%.
Oh,
and I wrote that down on an index card. I posted it above my laptop. We raised that round of capital. But I tell that story because I don't know if there's like a handbook or something that you VCs have with like pep talks for founders that you give to help keep us going. But I think there's outside of capital, outside of organizing, I think there's a very powerful role for you to play in your ability to affirm, those of us who truly believe that we can do the impossible. I don't think that this journey that we're on and getting Kamala Harris, the next president of the United States, I don't think that it's impossible. I think it's quite feasible. But I just want to recognize and acknowledge the role that you have in persuasion as well, not just capital.
Tiffany, in your career, you have been a founder, but you've also been there for, is it fair to say thousands of founders as a mentor, as an advisor, as a program director? So in your conversations this year, how are founders feeling about this election? Like what is on their minds and why do you think a Harris-Walz administration will be good for entrepreneurs?
Well, they're thinking about everything. Top of mind, their mental health and just the onslaught of responsibility and stress and overwhelm that comes with, running a company and also caring for your family and other people in your extended family. Keep in mind that I spend a lot of time with women founders. They're thinking about the impact of the global economy on their ability to raise capital, on consumer spending, and whether or not they're going to raise the best capital that Roy taught me to raise, which are paid customers, paying customers, their own personal finances, of course, because it is an incredible risk to go out on a limb and to become an entrepreneur and to find a problem for a customer or someone that you feel really passionate about. I think that in this election, the reason why this administration is going to be good for entrepreneurs is because their policies prioritize people. And people drive business. We're used to thinking of markets driving business, but at the very early stage, it really is about the people. 90% of businesses in America are smaller businesses. Of course, there are a percentage of them that we hope are going to become the Amazons and the Googles of the world. Those represent a very small percentage. And so really prioritizing people's ability to access healthcare, especially because in the early stages, we're trying to get a company off of the ground. You may not necessarily have a healthcare plan. Being able to prioritize people's ability to be a caregiver and to provide childcare for people's families, it's so critical when you're trying to get a company off of the ground. So I think that the priority around community and around people is really critical, because I'm supporting founders at the very early stages of their businesses. And it's all of that that's going to help them to get to the next level.
I'll give you one final question. And I know that you and I share one of our values, and you have stated your life's mission as supporting the lives of women and girls. And you've lived so truly to that for so long. So I guess I just want to give you the stage for a moment to tell us what's on your mind about this election, because I know it's, you know, it's a big moment for us.
Everything's at stake. Everything's at stake right now. Our ability to control our own bodies is at stake. I have a 15-year-old daughter who I want to live in a world where she has as many options as possible to pursue her dreams and her ambitions. And she shouldn't have to choose between being a caregiver and her livelihood. I've spent my entire career fighting for women and girls. And I've spent my career trying to promote and advance women's leadership. This is the time. This is the time. You only get one shot. Do not miss this chance to blow this opportunity. And let me tell you, when a Black feminist starts quoting Eminem, we are on the precipice. We're on the precipice. I've never fought so hard for a candidate. I'm going to continue to do it. I hope that all of you join us. I actually believe that everything is in the balance. It's why I'm on this call. And it's why I'm so fortunate to be your friend. Thank you, Leslie, for galvanizing all of us.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to spend 5 minutes with you. I know how busy you are. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your beautiful words and for all of the work that you do for founders, for women, and for me as a friend.
Thank you.
Leslie,
Bye,
it's Kate, and I'm just going to break in for 1 second. Thank you, Tiffany, so much. We have raised $32,761 so far. So thank you, guys. You're holding Ron to his word, because our match is at 50K. So keep
Awesome.
on donating.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Kate. Guys, nice job. Let's get some more. I want to know who is going to do the next matching pledge. I know that we have people who can do it on this call. And so if you are interested in matching other people's pledges, please send over a message to Kate, Kate at vcsforkamala.org or John at vcsforkamala.org. And we would love to recognize your generosity. Okay, so next up, listen, okay, I got a room full of VCs to talk about politics, and I do completely understand that all of you are experts in all the minutia of economic policy and like foreign policy. Like, I get it. You guys know everything. But just in case you don't know what's at stake in this election, I thought that we could do something a little different, which is to tell you about our little campaign in a language that you perhaps will understand a little bit better. And to do that, I am very excited to introduce my friend, Roy Bahat. Roy, please join us.
Thank you. My favorite role here, I am following the women who are leading the way. Can folks see the pitch deck on the screen? Perfect. Okay, so I'm Roy Bahat. I'm a VC, and I think we're just going to show this in our common language. So what's the problem we're dealing with here? The other guys are the problem. The other guys represent the past. There are many other problems. For example, their lack of respect for the rule of law, for women's rights, wanting to curtail healthcare, and more. Let's remember, they have shown us a long track record of exactly how they have been this way. They've been this way for a very long time. And that's why we need Kamala for president. So 3 reasons. She's normal. She's a person who makes decisions like we do. She's going to make the country stable, and the conditions that she'll create in this country will help startups to thrive. So we remember what's at stake. There's a very large market here. This is just the GDP, let alone the asset value of the United States, much bigger than this. The go-to-market for this group has been really effective. Leslie led it with that rage tweet. Then started talking to journalists. You can see her figuring out what an embargo is live. Oh, wait, that's you. Wait a minute. If I tell you about this, will you promise not to talk about it? And then bam, here we are. It has gone viral. All of us are here. The traction is off the charts. There's even more traction for this candidate. Stock market hit an all-time high during the last 4 years. Unemployment dropped below 4%. The number of manufacturing jobs at the highest level since 2008. And Kamala herself cast the tie-breaking vote on one issue after another, including, if it's time to building large-scale factories for semiconductors, electric vehicles, batteries, all this stuff that decarbonizes the economy. And maybe most important to us as VCs, a record number of new starts for businesses, 18 million during this time. The team is amazing. I've melded their bios here together. If they had one bio, it'd be even more extraordinary. Howard University, Army National Guard, Attorney General of a state, serving in the House of Representatives, a senator, governor, first female vice president. I mean, you can't get logos better than this. And let's not forget who the competition is. They are the past and quite unstable. We are the future and very stable. Total unicorn. Also, by the way, yes, it's true. The competition is funded by Andreessen Horowitz and some other funds, but we all know more capital isn't necessarily the thing that makes the difference. It's that plus a plan for execution. So we've got that plan, Kamala.ai, lots of ways that she can use AI to make a better presidency. And with only 89 days left, this is the amount of cash on hand, increasing by the minute here on this call. So don't forget, tinyurl.com/VCs for Kamala. The co-investors, that's all of us. And so just close by saying, we're raising to put Kamala Harris in the Oval Office. It is an uncapped safe, quote unquote, unburdened by what has been. The round closes tonight. If you want to invest, that's the URL. If you want to volunteer, I'll share some of these URLs. And I think that John and others are going to share some other opportunities. Let's fucking go. That's all I have to say.
Boy, you are like the best sport. I cannot believe that you just got up and did that in front of like hundreds of VCs and all of the press in the world. I feel a little bad for the folks that have to like follow this. That was pretty hilarious. Thank you so much. And thank you very much. Like originally the deck had a comment about how like one of the pain points was like you can actually leave her alone with your daughters, but I see that you very elegantly.
I do have a daughter, but I didn't feel as confident saying that as many other people on this call. So I went for the stuff I know professionally. I know what makes startups work. And an administration like hers is going to make startups work. I welcome anybody else coming in with all their thoughts. And I know you have some greats that are about to follow.
We do. And just for the record, this is an absolutely AI-powered movement. Definitely all of our logos are made by AI, and much of the social media that has happened has also had a little bit of a hand of AI. So thank you to our friends who are building chatbots. All right, let's move on.
Can I jump in for 1 second, Leslie?
Yeah,
and
go.
Thank you to somebody donating $25,000 just now. We've made $73,073. That's pretty awesome. So thank you for whoever just did that. The campaign is thrilled by these numbers and your support.
I feel like I can't even continue. That is amazing. Kate, you only bring good news. How are you sitting up right now?
I'm sitting on a lot of pillows.
What discs you broke?
L2 and L4, they're very important. I didn't know how important until I sat on them.
Yeah, very important. Please donate. She's working her butt off, guys.
Yeah, we do have 125K right now because we had the 50K match. So that's pretty awesome. Keep going,
all right, guys. How high can we go? Qualified purchasers in the room. Let's see what you can do. All right, next up. We know what the stakes are. We've talked to a founder. We've talked to a couple of VCs. But I think that a lot, how this whole thing started was a bunch of really, really, really big, powerful VCs that were kind of speaking for the whole industry. And what I wanted to do was highlight perhaps some of the up and coming, kind of what I like to think is the future of venture capital. They say that little tech is for Trump, and I could not agree harder. And so with that, I'm going to invite my new friend, Lindley Browning, a senior editor, who is a business editor and writer with a versatile voice across audience and channel. Please welcome Lindley Browning of Impact Alpha. Sorry, I kind of messed up that intro, Lindley. You are amazing. My adrenaline is too high.
No worries, Leslie, and thank you. I am super excited for this panel, which includes Keisha Landrum Pierre, the co-founder and general partner of Emmeline Ventures, Stephen DeBerry, managing partner of Bronze Investments, and Mac Conwell, founder and managing partner of Rare Breed Ventures. So let's just dive right in and start with the observation that Harris has been laying out a vision for shared prosperity, one that includes economic opportunity across race, class, and geography. Specifically, she's for policies that promote growth, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and that provide resources for business owners to succeed. What does the investment case for that agenda look like? And relatedly, what are the most effective pro-businesses policies right now to make that happen? And I'll let you guys decide who wants to go first.
Well, I'll jump in just to get the conversation started. We are about growth. It's simple. And our economy discussion often veers towards talking about billionaires. But Roy put up the chart of our $25 trillion GDP economy. And when you aggregate the sum of all billionaires, it's actually fractional relative to the whole. What actually drives the economy is consumer spending. That's 70% of our GDP. The majority of that is mopped up. And so the growth is on the edges. Those are markets that are overlooked. Those are markets that are misunderstood. That's where the growth in the economy lies fallow. And so that's where the area of our industry should be focusing for the benefit of growing our entire economy.
Totally agree. Love that. And what I'd add to it, first of all, what we're doing today is magical. I want to make sure you all can hear me. The fact that there are 4,000 people here and that this is a group of people who know what the future looks like, and we invest in the future and we build that future. The fact that we're here together doing it is phenomenal. So welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be in a space with such incredible people. To me, the thing I would add to what you said, Stephen, and I love, it's really what you're talking about is this abundance mindset, right? It's this idea behind little tech, which is characterized by a focus on inclusivity and sustainable growth. That is exactly what we see with Kamala's administration, or what she intends to do. And it's exactly what the people in this room are building for. It's the future we're building for. It's the founders that we're investing in. And that's precisely why we're here, right? We see someone who believes in the collective potential of diverse teams, right? Believes in the collective potential of more creative solutions and how that creates greater opportunities, right? And I also see this because with Mac, you say this all the time, right? This is absolutely what you're doing and who you're investing in.
Thank you for that layup there.
That was a layup.
I want to start off. I know everybody said amazing things about Leslie and Kate, but just to reiterate the fact that all this is happening, incredible. To have gotten to know Leslie as a VC and become friends and now working side by side for things much bigger than just our day-to-day jobs, I feel so lucky to be a part of all of this. And so thank you for letting me be here. And I completely agree with the both of you. When we look at Vice President Harris and the Vice President nominee, Mr. Waltz, we see them talk a lot about bringing the U.S. together, bringing our country together, looking at all communities, not just certain communities, right? All of this was in response to a large VC firm saying they were speaking for VCs, but they were really only speaking for 2 states, right? And really one, just them in California saying, hey, everything that we care about is what matters. But you need to understand, I started my career as a VC working for the state of Maryland, where my job was to invest in the best entrepreneurs in the state. And it looked very different than what they were doing in Silicon Valley and how hard it was to try and get those folks to come to Baltimore, where I'm based at, to look at the companies we're working with, because the companies weren't close enough to them or didn't look like them or didn't sound like them. You know, all the kind of the dog whistles we're hearing on the other side, right? All these otherisms. And because of those otherisms, they didn't want to take the time to come to Baltimore to meet those founders. That's the exact opposite of what we're hearing from Kamala Harris and her team as they're going forward with this administration. So I'm excited, and we got to push forward to make this happen, y'all.
This is fantastic because all three of these responses segue nicely into a next question that really focuses on the following. How can so-called little tech and the VCs that fund them ensure that the abundance agenda thrives? And I'm interested particularly in answers that would perhaps incorporate what Stephen was talking about with growth on the edges.
Well, I mean, maybe I can start because I think we have a language problem, and we really need to frame this conversation carefully when we start using words like big tech and little tech. So let's just talk about what the conversation is about. So in 1971, there was an economic scholar, a guy named George Stigler, who wrote this really seminal paper called The Theory of Economic Regulation. And in it, he talked about what became known as regulatory capture. And it's important for us to understand that concept. It's basically the idea that regulation should be independent from those who are regulated. And so this framing of big tech and little tech, has been cast around this idea of regulatory capture, that the very large tech companies have captured regulators. And so therefore, we should not regulate, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's the big idea. This really isn't a conversation about big tech versus little tech, because that sounds like it's about large versus small. What this really is a conversation about take all tech versus tech that serves the entire population. And the firm that put this framework out there would have us believe that folks who are backing Kamala Harris are anti-capitalist. But that's obviously inane with a call with 4,000 venture capitalists. That doesn't make any sense. We're not opposed to profits. We're not opposed to high growth. That's what drives us. That's why we're here. We're not opposed to billionaires. There are several of them on this call. What we are opposed to is building a regulatory regime that guts our government and pulls out safeties so that the system can't withstand itself and it collapses. And therefore, the wealth in the system is aggregated to only a few, and we become an oligopoly society like Russia. That's not what we want. And so that's why I'm supporting President Harris. I just want to lay that framework out there.
That's fantastic. I'd love to hear Mac and Keisha what you think.
Mac, you're on mute.
I had to be the person that was muted to speak. Somebody had to do it. It's me. We got it over with. There we go. I wanted to jump in here because to Stephen's point, it's this idea of, even when we're talking about big tech and little tech, like, why are we differentiating tech, right? We all use tech. We're all like, tech is for everybody. Why is it even a big or little? They've made it that way. They've literally made teams for something that's supposed to be for everybody. Like, when you stop and think about how ridiculous is that? We're all supposed to be working together, and they're literally trying to say, we don't want to work with y'all. We want to work over here. And we don't want any rules. We want growth for growth's sake with no guardrails, regulations be damned. And as a VC, yes, regulations suck, right? They get in the way. They make things harder, but they also make sure that this system doesn't collapse. Because we see when you just give power to people and let them run rapid, what happens? That's what happened in a previous administration. And you got VCs who are sprouting the same nonsense, saying we want all the power and we don't want to take accountability for if anything goes wrong. Yes, I would love to see Web3 regulations open up, but we got to protect people. Right? Like, the idea of being cautious at times is not a bad thing, and it's not anti-growth, right? Because growth for growth's sake, without any guardrails, you will go off a cliff and we will be in a far worse place than where we are now. It's okay when you're making a lot of money, say, I want to keep making money. Great. But you gotta have rules and guardrails in place, because we are a nation of law. We follow a rule of law. And for another party that claims to be the party of law, they seem to be running with lawlessness. And they seem to be trying to change all the rules so that they can break all the laws. And I'm just saying, I see what Kamala's trying to do. And I'm riding for it.
I'm ready to vote for you, Mac.
Yeah, same here.
No, I love all of that. I just want to like kind of sit with what you both said. I think it's critical. I think it's so important. But this point around growth for growth's sake without any guardrails, I think we even as VCs get that and get how critically important it is. I mean, you can grow and grow and grow and break if you do not have guardrails. I built and grew and scaled one of the largest international media companies focused on Africa. And the reason it's still here is because we grew to stay. We didn't grow so fast that we broke. And I think that thinking around, growing without guardrails, no, like, and so that just really resonated. The thing though that I wanted to add is that, the entire job of us as venture capitalists, right, is to see an opportunity, see an economic unlock that everyone else is not paying attention to, right? We are meant to look for the opportunities, look for what is being overlooked. And what really resonates for me about the future that Kamala would help us unlock, we can actually invest in the future that we know is possible, right? We can invest in the future that we know that we know is possible with a culture that celebrates that. It should not be odd. It should not be groundbreaking to say that we're investing in female founders. We know that more founders today are female founders, and yet they're still not receiving as much capital as they should be receiving, right? So we are looking to unlock the world that should already exist, and that's what venture does, and that's why it makes so much sense that we're all here on this call, and it makes so much sense that we get it, because we know that in order to get the future that we want to see and to see the economic unlock that we are all after, we have to get involved, because the alternative prevents that. Truly, like the alternative prevents what we are all after.
Leslie, I hope we have time for one more quick question, which follows from Lakeisha's comments right now. Men have outnumbered women as startup founders by a ratio of nearly 6-to-1 in general. And last year, that disparity got even worse. Just 13.2% of founders last year were women, according to Carta. That's down from 15.1% in 2022. And it's the lowest annual figure on Carta in, at least 6 years. Why is the number of women founders declining, and how can that decline be reversed? Lakeisha?
Without oversimplifying, voting for Vice President Harris, without an oversimplification, that's one of the solutions. Quite frankly, it will continue to go in the opposite direction if we do not make sure that she's elected, right? But more specifically, I think there's a slice there, which is Carta's data point is focusing on venture-backed businesses, right? So venture-backed businesses, not just women entrepreneurs who are building and can't raise venture capital. So they're just building non-venture scalable businesses. So that data point is actually focusing on female founders who are building venture-backed businesses. And by the way, giving a huge shout out to my co-founder, Naseem Sayani, who we were working on these questions together. But I think something that's really, really important to highlight is when you are in a capital constrained environment, right? So everyone here in this Zoom knows that it's been tough to raise if you're a fund manager. It's been tougher to raise if you're a founder, right? And you know that if you're a founder and it's tougher to raise capital, the underrepresented founders usually are the first on the chopping block, right? And so we're already looking to get more capital in the hands of women. But in a market like today, they tend to be the ones who are amongst the first not to get capital, right? So when they're going out to raise their seed extensions, or they're going out to raise their seed or Series A's, they're having a tougher time raising, because the number of fund managers that are able to write checks into their startups is smaller, right? And the amount of capital that's able to go to them is smaller. So, however, these women continue to bootstrap, right? They still continue to seek non-dilutive capital, right? They continue to hustle. And I would say of all 25 of our female founders in our portfolio, all of them are thriving at a time. And what I mean by that is they have still somehow figured out a way to raise. They've somehow figured out a way to get capital. And so what I also want to highlight when we're talking about the fact that why is it that there are not enough women entrepreneurs who are venture backed? What I'll say is that even though they are not enough, they are the most resilient, right? They are the most resilient founders, and they figure it out and they keep going. And I often say that like when this wave crashes, they will still be like when this, you know, wave is over, they'll still be around, right? And I think that's really critical. Anyway, so I'll pause there because I want to hear what I see Stephen, he's off mute, so I want to hear what he has to say.
Well, I appreciate everything you're saying, Lakeisha, and I would just build on that. You know, when I think about that question, I think the sine qua non, the thing that we have to have, is a stable society. You cannot have economic growth without a stable society. And Donald Trump represents an existential threat to the stability of our democracy. That's why it's so important for all of us to line up behind Kamala Harris. This is not a party-oriented thing. There are a bunch of folks who are Republicans who are getting in line behind Kamala Harris because they understand exactly this. So, you know, we talked about growth. We talked about the growth lying fallow on the edges. We know that. There are tons of women founders who go unfunded. The thing you didn't mention, Lindley, in contrast to the low funding numbers, are the outsized returns that those female founders are generating. So, you know, I'm confident that the market will figure that out. I used to, you know, spend a lot of my breath trying to convince folks of this opportunity. And now I don't need the competition, frankly. You know, I'd be happy to fund, you know, these amazing women founders. And there are a lot of folks in the market who will want to do the same thing. So that will get resolved as long as we have a stable democracy. And the only way that I see we get there in the immediate future is to vote for Kamala Harris.
With that, I'm going to say that we're going to put our money where our mouth is, because you guys have donated $84,183. And I think we have to move on, only because I know we have a really tight schedule. Leslie, I'm going to throw it back to you. Excuse me, Lindley and everybody. But we will absolutely revive this conversation at a future note and also in the comments.
Thank you. And I'm not going to hold us up very long. Please keep donating. Please keep making pledges. And remember when I said at the very beginning that hundreds of you sent me messages asking how you could be helpful. So now I would love to introduce my colleague, John Corrigan, who is going to tell you exactly what your job is going to be over the next 90 days. John.
Leslie, thank you. And first, Kate, I don't think any man could have done what you did in the last 6 days with 2 broken vertebrae and a concussion. So thank you. Buckle up, kids, because the next 7 minutes are going to be intense. I'm going to tell you what you can do every single day to help Kamala Harris win in November. First, who am I and what qualifies me talking to you today? My name is John Corrigan. I'm a multi-time founder. Currently, I'm the co-founder of a company called Curve AI. I'm also a sometimes venture capitalist. And I blame my mother, who got me involved in politics at the ripe old age of 8 years old, knocking doors for candidates in the south side of Chicago, where I come from. That bad habit led me into being a national finance co-chair for several presidential campaigns, most of whom you've heard of. My role here at VCs for Kamala is to get you involved and to be your campaign Sherpa or your campaign club promoter, as I like to say, to make sure that you are doing something every single day that will help Vice President Kamala Harris win in November. There are 4 key ways in which you can get involved. If you're super busy and you're running your fund and you're like, listen, John, I can donate, I can register to vote, I can make a plan to vote. Making a plan to vote is key. If you make a plan to vote, you actually do it. That's fine. You check that box and that's great. If you want to step that up a little bit and you're like, hey, I've registered to vote, I've made a plan to vote, I want to pair my donation with going to an official campaign event because, hey, maybe you want to meet Mayor Pete. Hey, maybe you want a picture with the candidate. We can get you plugged into those events, so please reach out to us and we'll make that happen for you. Number 3 is if you want to donate, get registered to vote, and then organize your own campaign event. There are 2 ways in which to do that. You can do independently organized events, or you can do work alongside the campaign to do an event where you host a surrogate. This is what I call hard mode. I don't truly recommend that to people. I recommend going to an event versus hosting your own unless you have an army of people who can help you. In 20 years of doing this on the federal level, I've only been able to pull that off 6 times, and it was really hard every time. As evidenced by this event tonight, this was a lot of work, but this is truly, truly worth it. So thank you so much for coming. Now, I think while you're all here is the 4th option, which is, hey, how do I get involved every single day? I want to organize, I want to fundraise, I really want to do something every day. So the first order of business is you want to find an accountability buddy, because organizing is like Burning Man meets group fitness. It's always better with battle buddies and accountability buddies. My friends out in North Carolina, I see you, by the way, and I will be definitely reaching out to get you involved on a daily basis, but I digress. So step one is find an accountability buddy. Step two is you commit to each other that you're going to make 5 phone calls a day to get people registered to vote and to get them donating, or like you, organizing. So do this in pairs of 2s or pairs of 4s. 2s are great, 4s are better. Make that accountability commitment to each other and check in with each other every single day. All of you who are VCs have portfolio companies. Your portfolio CEOs may like and may probably listen to you, so call them first. Make sure they're talking to their employees, getting them to register to vote, getting them to donate, getting them involved. The key piece is register to vote, making plans to vote, and donating. So let's say you've got your accountability buddy and you've made your plan to vote, and you're like, all right, John, what do I do next? Make a list. So we've got our company CEOs. Start calling people in battleground states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona. These are the states that matter. I don't care if you haven't talked to your cousin who you haven't seen since the family reunion of 2003, call them. Make sure that they are registered to vote. This stuff matters. It's called the snowflake theory. It's worked since the dawn of time. It's awesome. And it is about, and politics is a personal business, so you have to engage people personally. Okay, you got your accountability buddy, you've made your list, you're talking to folks. What are the questions? You pick up that first call. What are the questions you want to ask on that first call? Hey, cousin Bob, haven't talked to you since 03. Are you voting this year? Are you registered to vote? These are gateway questions, right? You're not trying to engage someone in a political debate. You're not trying to sell them yet. You're just seeing if they're going to get involved. You're qualifying them. So if they are getting involved, and they're like inevitably going to ask you, why, John, are you voting for Kamala Harris? You want to have 2 answers prepared. One is why personally you are voting for Kamala Harris, right? You want to make that personal, but you don't want to sledgehammer someone too hard, so they can respond and say, oh my God, I can relate to you about that. I feel the same way as you. Can you believe he said that, right? So that's your positive statement. You can use campaign talking points. I always write my own because they feel more authentic and they're very centric to me. And then the other is, as a VC, like, we invest in the leaders of tomorrow. Donald Trump is no leader of tomorrow. He is no manager. He is not someone who is a credible person who can lead the free world. I've seen that up close and personal. Okay, now you've had that conversation. You're not trying to get in political debates with people, and you're not trying to sell them. They are either going to come to our side or they are not, and that's okay. You want to get through as many people as you possibly can, right? You're not going to win everybody, and that's okay. Thanksgiving might be awkward if cousin Bob's really a Trump supporter, but you'll get over it. Okay, so now you're like, John, I'm all in on that. What do you do? 1, find your accountability buddy. There's a lot of you on this call. Maybe you do that tonight. You email us, and it's like a term sheet. You make that commitment. It's john@vcsforkamala.org. Remember the .org, not .com. And you say, hey, I want to get involved. CC your accountability buddy or your accountability team, and we will help you get involved on a daily basis. Start making those calls. You can do that tonight, and you want to do that for the next 89 days through election day. It can be really meaningful. Trust me, I've been doing it for many, many years. Okay. So also, if you want to go to events or other things of that nature, we will get you plugged in. Despite the fact that I'm trying to close a round right now, I do have very fast thumbs, so I will get back to you quickly, or someone on my team, a gentleman named Weston Kevel, will get back to you. When are we reconvening? Conveniently after Burning Man. We are getting together on September 4th. So if you want to organize, join that call on September 4th, and we will talk about best practices, who's made the most phone calls, who's raised the most money, and we will make sure and get you really going in the right direction, and we'll have those phone calls every week. It's August, so take that opportunity. As people are on vacation, they'll actually pick up their phone or they'll actually respond to a text. So let's get organizing tomorrow or even tonight. And if you have any questions, again, John, JOHN, at vcsforkamala.org. I will leave you with this. I believe that we are an industry who creates possibilities and a country that creates possibilities. Nowhere else in the world could someone like Kamala Harris have the possibility of becoming president. And that is a beautiful and amazing thing. That only here in America is that possible. But in order for us to usher that into reality, and the reality that we believe that we can collectively make together, it is going to take the actions of each and every one of us every day from now until election day to make that reality happen. I hope you will join us and take that challenge and make that pledge to us to get involved and to organize, because this is going to take every one of us. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope we get to work together.
Thank you so much, John. All right, everybody, did you take notes? If you did not take notes, I will be emailing you all later tonight on behalf of myself, Kate and John, and all of the volunteers, so that you have a to-do list. And you are going to do that to-do list because you are excited about the future of our nation. I could not be more honored to introduce our next speaker, who just really needs no introduction. In a run of show, he is just labeled legend. And so why don't I just bring you on? Because we all know all the things that you did. I just have a question though. Is this real Reid or AI Reid?
Well, I have my ears, and so hopefully it's the
How many
real
are
Reid.
fingers? What's
Al-
fingers?
although Reid AI might be more interesting than me. We'll see.
Thank you so much for being here, Reid.
My pleasure. And look, you guys are doing a great job. Been listening to the excitement all the way from the panel and John's comments and all the rest. So huge shout out to you guys for putting the work in. The chat and Q&A stream has been going nonstop, and it's really awesome. So thank you for you, and I'll make a few comments. One thing I'll kick off from John's thing. Part of the way that I described Trump is he's a reality television star who is so bad at business he could lose money running a casino, and that's kind of quite a challenge. And we covered some of the really important issues in the panel and other things about how Kamala Harris is very good for diversity of innovation, through innovation for all of us, through her work in California and a bunch of different domestic issues, which I think are very important. And when you compare presidential candidates, she's the one who's actually, in fact, been in governance roles with a focus on creating innovation. And part of the thing of when you look at, for example, Trump's history, it's tariff wars. It's a bunch of things that are not actually, in fact, pro-business. Chaos, bullying companies, all of that just on the domestic issue. Now, when we get to Silicon Valley and technology companies, almost all technology companies aspire to become global companies. And part of becoming a global company is having a great international position. And part of that international position allows us to sell products and services and goods. And I think that's one of the things where, it's like, Kamala Harris, 10 out of 10, Trump, 0 out of 10. It cannot be more stark. And, people who worry about, kind of little corner cases in crypto or taxation or regulation are missing the fundamental importance of a stable, unifying force, both domestically and internationally. And that's the reason why, Kamala Harris is actually, in fact, the business candidate. The Apprentice as a television show does not create a credential, right, for doing this. And so, I think that the really key thing when you're talking to people and talking to a bunch of, like, all of John's things about, like, how do you get other business people involved? How do you get them to donate? How do you get them to do stuff? Is to just make the case for what is good for business. Right. You don't have to go into any of the other things when you're talking to business people. This is how we talk to a lot of CEOs. And I've had a number of conversations with various very large scale CEOs who are like, yeah, we agree. No chaos, no arbitrariness, no corruption with trying to, throw your weight around with specific companies, a good international rule of order. All of this is far, far better for investing, for creating jobs, for products in the future. And that's why, I am, 100 out of 10 supportive of Kamala Harris for president, and that she would be great for not just the society, the American people, but for business and for the economy. And so I don't know if I have a lot more to say than that. It's pretty clear, but I'm happy to help however I can.
Reid, what are you excited about seeing over the next 90 days?
So I think she's made a great running mate choice. And, part of how, how strong and great I think her decisioning is, Waltz wasn't even on my radar when I was making, throwing in suggestions. So I think she's doing a great job. I think she's keeping the energy up in really good ways. I think that there's a variety of things where, where, I think we will see a lot of attempts to the Republicans to portray her as a kind of a way lefty. And I think what she is a great centrist, right? In that kind of classic, I care about a greater society that includes everybody, and I care about business, and I care about everyday, kind of American concerns. And if people want to get what I think is kind of to some degree the best angle into to Kamala as a person is to go look at the Hot Ones episode, right? That kind of stuff, like those kinds of things, I think are the things to look at, the cooking shows and so forth.
Well, I think that there's so many of us that have been really, really grateful for your leadership and your voice in this entire year of campaigning. It's been heartening to have a counterbalance to a narrative that just feels like doesn't represent certainly not the people that I talk to.
Yeah. And looking at some of the comments, Kamala Harris is definitely the blue lightsaber in this in this election.
Yes, that's right. Speaking of a centrist candidate, one of the things that has gotten lost in this entire story is I'm actually a naturalized citizen myself, and this will be the second election that I ever vote in. I'm not a registered Democrat or Republican, and my personal politics don't actually match to American politics in any clean way. And what I'm looking for is just what is the vision of the future that I want to see. And, I have been a VC for a very, very short period of time compared to you. But one of the things that I have learned is that, when we look at an investment and we're diligencing them, one of the things that we ask ourselves is, what does the world look like if this company is massively successful? And I guess I would just encourage everybody to ask them. So like, no matter where you sit on the political spectrum, ask yourself, like, what does the world look like if these candidates are massively successful? And I think that there's one vision of that is exciting. And then there's one vision of that is actually quite terrifying.
1000%.
Reid, thank you so much for being here today. It's just been an honor to meet you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody here. I'm going to hand it over to Kate to say a few words and close us out. I have so much like adrenaline pumping through my body that I know that I have forgotten to thank people. I think they're not here, but my husband and children deserve that they have been so neglected over the past week. Like tomorrow, I'm going to spend some quality time with them. And Kate,
Kate's going to take us out. Kate is going to take her horse to the horse trainer tomorrow to see what happened. It's a really exciting time for all of us. I am getting a word from the campaign that we raised a total of $90,228 from 96 donors. In addition to our match from Ron Conway, which means we are at about, $115,000 during the course of this short but sweet campaign. I am positive that you guys are still donating and that you will donate at future events. We have a whole bunch of folks who want to meet up in real life. That will happen. We have a whole bunch of folks that want more stuff to do. That will happen. Thank you so much to everybody who came. John, you had one sentence you wanted to say.
Yeah, if you want stuff to do in real life, we will find it for you. Trust me. And someone asked about get out the vote. Like, I think going to knock doors is like taking your life in your own hands. It's really fun. We will be doing GOTV in battleground states in late October and early November. If you want to go do that with me and others, we will get you dialed in. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll be doing a lot of that in Wisconsin. Roy and I are both here in Wisconsin, and we'll be here through the election, which is quite an adventure. But again, if you haven't emailed me, if you haven't been in touch with us, it's vcsforkamala.org, and you can find all of us there. If you are a reporter who really, really wants this video, it is coming as fast as it can. It will come from Weston on our team, and Weston and John are working on that email and that upload as soon as they can. If you have any other questions, need any statistics, want to know something about this, let us know. And it was so nice to see you all. We'll see you again soon.